Hey everyone, welcome to Be Our Guest, our weekly virtual happy hour with industry professionals. I'm Janki, Artistic Director of Live and in Color. We are an artist-serving organization dedicated to developing new stage works that promote and celebrate diversity. Please consider making a donation to Live and in Color today to support our artists who continue to make socially inclusive and bold work during this time. Just go to liveandincolor.org for more information. Now, grab your cocktail and start leaving your questions for our amazing guest in the comments. Please welcome an incredible Obie Award-winning director. She directed the world premiere of If Pretty Hurts Ugly Must Be a Muhfucka and the hit revival of For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Isn't Enough. Please say hello to the brilliant Leah C. Gardiner. Hello.
Hello. Cheers.
Welcome.
It's so good to see you, Dev. It feels like it's been forever. How are you?
I'm great. Better now that you're here with me.
I'm telling you, rocking and rolling with this beautiful platform. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Where are you tuning in from?
So I'm on Columbus Avenue in Manhattan on the Upper West Side. And I've been here since lockdown.
Yes.
I've escaped twice, I think, but I've stayed put and crossing my fingers with the vaccine, and hopefully, we'll be live and in color again.
Yes, let's
again. Here's to that, right? Indeed.
So, is New York originally home for you?
No, originally I'm from Philadelphia.
Okay.
I actually went to high school, the same high school as Coleman Domingo and Will Smith.
Oh, yeah.
So we nice little art
great
school.
Company.
Yeah, it's really great. So yeah, Philadelphia.
I mean, you have had such an enviable directing career. I'm such a huge fan of your work and everything you do. Did you always want to be a director from a young age?
Always.
Really?
Well, let's see. I mean, I always let me backtrack. I always knew how to direct. Like I was always directing. I would, as a child, every weekend when we were at home, I would move the furniture around in my bedroom. So I was trying different things, different ways, and like what would the bed be? And I didn't realize that I was really sort of looking at how feng shui worked and how furniture moved in space. It was really kind of fun. I wrote poetry. I was a poet as a kid. And I studied poetry in high school with Sonia Sanchez. And then when I went to college, I studied with Elizabeth Alexander. And then when I came out of college, I worked with Entezaki, which was lovely for about 6 months, I think. So I've sort of had a wonderful poetic life.
Yeah.
And I think that really informed my love for theater. And I was also a dancer. So I played the piano. So I was really interested in finding an art form that kind of combined all of those passions and all of those loves. And in college, in my senior year, found theater. Although as a child, my mother used to take us, she would pack me and my girlfriends into her car and we would go down to, there's a Black theater in Philadelphia called Freedom Theater. Mm-hmm. And for my birthday, once a year, we would, wear our pajamas and we would all go. It's so funny now, the Philadelphia accent's coming out, the pajamas. But we would wear our pajamas and we would go down and watch theater, and she would arrange a special talk back for me and the girls. So it was,
wow.
It's just natural, I think, that I ended up here.
Do you remember what that first show was that hooked you into the business, that made you want to?
No, but I remember, actually, I do remember the first show that I saw in New York. But as a child, there was an artist, an actor at Freedom Theater, and his name was Johnny Hobbs, I believe was his last name for the Philadelphia folks watching. And he was an extraordinary actor. And I would watch him on stage. And I remember thinking to myself, if I could ever do that one day. I mean, his ability to transform was exquisite. And he was the first real, I think, person that drew me in.
Yeah.
But then when I was a child, the South African musical Sarafina.
Oh yeah.
Sarafina.
I think I saw that like 4 times when it was.
It was brilliant. It
Right?
changed my life. And the most amazing thing is when I directed Generations for Soho Rep, Kona, who played Serafina
Wow.
on Broadway, was the mother in my
Wow.
show. And I hadn't said a word to her for 2 weeks. And then something happened within the rehearsal process. And there was an opportune moment. And I just said, I walked over to her and I put my arms around her and I said, I just need for you to know that you're one of the reasons that I'm in the American theater.
Wow.
And I want to say thank you.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, that was a
Yeah.
beautiful gift.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You said you were a dancer. What did you dance from a young age? And then how did you pursue it as a career?
Well, I wished I could,
Yeah.
but I actually unfortunately had a tumor in my distal femur on my left leg when I was a teenager. And so I had to stop dancing because the bone could shatter. So I had to have it operated on. And then once sort of, you know, back then it wasn't the kind of operation. It took 1.5 years to heal.
Yeah.
So by then, you know, I'd moved on to poetry, and I did the Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Arts for poetry and studied theater as a minor there. So I think that's the dance and movement. It does really very much inform.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say, in your work, I can see the poetry and dance and everything you do. It really,
thank you.
It's so visual and so, I don't know, just it invokes something really special every time I see your work. You've taken on some innovative and provocative shows in your career, including If Pretty Hurts, which I adored, which was so incredible.
Thank you.
What material attracts you the most? Like when someone approaches you about a play, or what stuff do you pursue?
Yeah, that's interesting. Such a great question. And I loved, by the way, seeing Philly in the house here. I realized after about 10 years in that I really loved epic storytelling.
Yeah.
And, you know, I first and foremost consider myself a storyteller, but the stories that sort of have a sweeping beginning, middle, and end are those stories that I tend to feel very passionately about. And then usually the next thing that I really find attractive is language and how words are used. How does the writer use language in order to tell these epic stories? And what is the poetic landscape of the storytelling? And when I say that, I mean, how does poetry lend itself in music? How does it lend itself in movement? How does it lend itself in the words? How are they dancing and moving on the page?
Yeah.
So I really do tend to sort of work, you know, I do think it's about 10 years in, someone said to me, you know, you really don't work like an American, you work like a Brit. You know, Americans tend to go from the outside in, and Brits tend to go from the inside out, and Brits go outside in.
Yeah.
And and then back out again. And it really does seem to be the way that I tackle, because I'm so detail oriented and love specificity. But how is that specificity informed on a grand scale? I think is really how I tackle work.
And you know, I know you mostly for all the new work you work on, which is so exciting. What are like your first steps when you are given a new show, when you dive into something?
Well, I usually read the play 3, 4, sometimes 5 times. And each time, and I accept plays because, you know, read lots and lots and lots of plays, but I accept plays that I can visually see.
Yeah.
Because I am such a visual director, I need to visually see it from the first time I read it. And if I can see it and I can see the beginning and the end, then I know that I'm on track. There's a play I did at Manhattan Theater Club, a Penny Skinner play. It was a US premiere, I think. A US premiere of a British, no, it was a world premiere of a British play. And it was very complicated. A very complicated play. And I remember reading it, and I got the beginning And I got the end, but I did not understand a bit of it in the middle. And I said to myself, I have to do this because I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I can't leave this without understanding how it works. And ultimately, it was an incredible production. I was so proud of that work. But it was not easy. You know, it was very dense and hard. So I don't know if I just answered your question because I suddenly started visually going into that play, of course.
I love it. I'm exactly the same way. I'm so visual, and if I can't see it, and it's harder for me to get into a piece.
Yeah, and it's so true. And it's, for example, like I did a production of Othello, and you know, you read Othello as a child, you see productions of it, but whenever I tackle a classic, I do intentionally read it as if I've read it for the first time, because I want to know with where I am in my life. Because as you know, Deb, it really is about like, where are you as an artist, and how is the material responding to you? So I really do try to bring a sort of a fresh, where is my mind today when it comes to classical work, which is slightly different to new work.
Absolutely. And speaking of, I would call it a modern classic. You directed For Color Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Isn't Enough at the Theater, which won Best Revival, the Lortel Awards, the Outer Critics Circle Awards, the Antonio Awards. It was an incredible production, an all-female cast, an all-female creative team. What was that entire experience like? Because it was so exciting for everyone that show was coming back.
Oh, I'm so happy. Yeah, thank you. And by the way, all female of color.
Yeah.
Creative team, right? That was really important to me. It was just, I mean, first of all, to work on any Entezaki play is just, you know, a dream. But to have her ask me to do the most iconic Black woman play, really, I mean, it touched my heart. It meant the world to me. It still means the world to me. I feel so passionately and deeply about how she spent her life committed to us and to who we are and to what we stand for and what we won't stand for. And what I love about For Color Girls is that it really, and with the production that we made, which I'm so incredibly proud of, you know, she really looked at every aspect, the highs, the lows, generationally, the love, the cis love, the hetero love. I mean, it was just, you know, who are we as Black women? How are we as mothers, grandmothers? Like, what do we, how do we live in, with, and by, and for each other? And when we started rehearsal, that was really something that I wanted to examine, and I intentionally cast the show with women who are my complexion, you know, all the way down to the complete opposite end of the spectrum with someone like Okwe. And, you know, I really wanted to show us, America, the American theater, that we live and exist on all levels. It's why I chose intentionally to cast Alexandria Wales, a deaf actor, in the play, because I wanted the people to understand that Entezaki's words can be spoken in sign, and that there's a specific Black sign that is, you know, a way of communicating that we don't know about, that we need to learn about. So I was really interested. And again, I think, Dev, it goes back to how I see and approach life, which is very much sort of on an epic scale, on a really large, sweeping scale. So I was very proud of that work.
Yeah, I mean, thrilling. And so, like I said, thrilling for the entire community. And
thank you.
Crazy. I definitely call it a classic now, because after all these years, it just is so rich still.
That's right. Agreed. And it felt so, I mean, you know, the language, even some of that 1970s language, it felt immediate. I agree with you. You didn't think to yourself, "Oh, this play's so outdated." It didn't feel that at all. Which is why I'm very excited to see what Kenny does on Broadway with his upcoming play. Another Black classic. So
absolutely.
Good thing. Yeah.
So in addition to your work as a director, I know you from SDC, the Stage Director and Choreographer Society. You are on the executive board for the union.
That's right.
And over the past year, the We See White America movement has really taken off. How did you approach these demands for change, both as an individual and as part of the larger leadership team? Because it's all very complex.
It's extremely, well, let's go back, right? Let's go back to George Floyd. Let's go back to this time last year when, we were all living in a world that we had never experienced before, didn't understand. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly this happened. And the change that it brought, the sort of the insistence that invisibility not be a factor anymore, that we be seen, that you accept that we are here, we are not going anywhere, and that you take accountability for your actions. Mm-hmm. And I think on the union, and I'm very proud to say that we immediately listened when the We See You White American Theater movement occurred. And, I signed the letter that I was very passionate about. And to this day, I mean, just a couple of days ago, there was a town hall. I think there were about 1,000 of us on this call, just throughout the country. It was a beautiful moment. There's momentum in a way that we have not really seen in the American theater before. And I think that the board heard that, understood it, listened, and we worked very carefully and passionately when we put together our response to the demands. And I think that, and I know that the work that the board has been doing with the union over this last year, outside of everything with the pandemic, mm-hmm. but in particularly with inclusion and diversity, it has been extraordinary. I'm very proud of the work that we are doing.
Well, and thank you for all the work you're doing. I mean, it's as we know, so needed, and we're all sort of in the trenches with it right now. And
and you know what? I don't think we're going to be out of these trenches for a while, Dev.
No, we're not. I mean, I often say that I think there's. I'll be interested to see what happens in the next coming months and the year and moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, how do you think we can continue to create more access for BIPOC artists, especially behind the scenes?
So let's look at what what's that beautiful stage manager's name, and how is his name escaping me, because I just worked with him, who created the scholarship in his name for stage management. That that's an important sort of ground on the ground way that we can begin to affect change and make change. I think what you and I were talking about earlier, where I've just had conversation after conversation with young directors on how to navigate, just offering my wisdom, my knowledge. I think, again, this is just the very simple, what you and I can do, what they and they can do, what he and she can do on a very basic level is a first step. And then I think the collective movement, there are a number of different collective movements that are happening, right? We are working very diligently. I know that the technical union is really beginning to listen and thinking very much about how to incorporate and find more sound designers of color, right? Which is something that we desperately need. How do we cultivate relationships with, as directors? There's a Directors in Action group that I am involved in with a number of my colleagues, and we meet once a month and work diligently on how, we as directors need to take responsibility and accountability for our own actions. We BIPOC members,
Mm-hmm.
as well as our non-BIPOC allies. How do we need to continue working in conjunction with the other? So, and how are the unions talking and working together? So I think it could be different this time. And I know, my generation, we've been here before. Yeah. Right. But we're hopeful, and I am hopeful that the younger generation is not giving up. And we've created a pathway for that. And it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Fingers crossed. I mean, it's like when I was first starting out in the theater, I remember, was it now 1996 is when I graduated from grad school. I would be the only person of color in the room. And 40, 50 people. And I would request, please, may I have a designer of color? Well, we really don't know where to find them. Well, I can help you. I'd love to have an assistant director of color, please, so that I can teach them and, be a mentor. Oh, well, we don't really have them here. Right now, we're everywhere and we're not going away.
Yeah.
And these universities, the programs at schools, I'm doing something next month, I think, with my alma mater, Yale School of Drama, talking about sort of what it was like with our generation when we were in school. I think Sanaa Lathan and there's one other person, we're going to sort of do one of these. And I am encouraged that, the dean, James Bundy, is asking to have these conversations, and other universities are doing the same. So the programs are shifting and changing, right? Yeah. Artistic directors, some artistic directors are actually stepping aside because they're realizing that a new generation, a diverse generation needs to be in the room, needs to make the tables, needs to own the homes. And that's happening. So it's never going to happen as quickly as we'd like, at least for the next few years, but it is happening and the momentum is not stopping. And Dev, that's what you and I have to look forward to. And that's what we have to, wrap ourselves around and be grateful for, that it is not stopping.
Yeah, that's so great to hear and encouraging. When you constantly, like, daily come up against some sort of challenge where you're like, oh, yeah. This again, I'm the only person in the room.
Yes.
Speaking of that, so our mission at Live and in Color is to connect diverse communities, to create new stage works. What does having an inclusive working environment mean to you?
Everything. I mean, when you have an inclusive environment, you have a space where there are shared values. There is a shared value of humanity and art making, people respecting one another and caring about the mission. And the mission is, what can we do as humans, as artists, to affect change, to change the world? Art, theater changes the world. And if we don't have voices in there that represents all aspects of our world, we will not change. We cannot tell one person's story, right? Your story and my story are very different, but how are they the same? We are human. No matter how I self-identify, no matter how you self-identify, we are human and we are telling human stories. And that's what inclusion is. It's respect, values, care, compassion, and integrity for the other. We need more of that, and we're building that kind of coalition within our rehearsal halls and within our theaters. And that is necessary in order for our American theater to move into the next generation.
So beautifully said.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, I mean it.
Yeah. I think we have some questions from our viewers.
Ooh, yay. Okay, I'm going to take a
got.
quick sip, viewers.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh, Sophie says, question, how has your directing style adapted for remote productions? Oh, the world of virtual theater.
That's a great question. Hi, Sophie. So, it's the rehearsal work, the work around the table, as it were, lasts longer. You spend more time because in many ways you don't have as much time. So you really do spend a lot more time with getting into the text, diving into the text. And then for actors, so much of it is about them being their own stage manager, being their own costume designer at times. So, you spend more time really working with the actor, not just as an actor, but as an ally in creating more than just the role of the actor. But what does the character look like? What is your environment around you? Do you have a green screen? And then, of course, it's the editing process. So that's the other part of it that we in the American theater, because it was live before pandemic, we'd never really had to edit anything. But luckily, I had directed a short film before, so I knew how to edit, and that part of it has been a lot of fun for me, because that's when I get to really kind of pull on all of my other artistic skills. So I've loved it, and it's been great. And then Dev and I were speaking earlier, I directed a reading recently of a commercial musical that I am working on. And that was a lot of fun because, it's hard to sing on Zoom. So, it was just something else, but it was so much fun. And what it does, Sophie, is it just makes it so alive and so full and so fun because it's different and we're not used to it. And it's fun because we're doing what we love. So I've embraced it. I've really embraced it.
We've all learned all new skills this year too because of this. It's forced these old dogs to learn a lot of new tricks.
That's right. It's been wonderful. I've loved it. Yeah.
Let's take another question.
Okay.
Lynette from Canada says, besides work that seems daunting, challenging, how do you choose to get called to the shows you work on? Choose or get called to. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's I think, Lynette. Hi, Lynette in Canada. That's a two-pronged process, I think. A lot at this stage of my career, a number of the shows, plays that I get offered usually come through my team at WME in my agency. They'll read a play and they'll say, here, I think this is for you. Or if there's some musical that they think is right for me. A lot of times people will reach out through my website. I'll read those. My associate will read those plays and go through them to see if there's something that he feels that I could connect to. And then writers reach out to me directly. Writers I know, writers I haven't yet, spent any time with or haven't gotten to know, which is always wonderful to get to know new writers. And then theater companies, artistic directors ask me, usually through my team, if I'd be interested in working on a project at their theater. So it really kind of comes from many different vantage points, but ultimately it leads back to whether the play I just can viscerally connect to. But you're right. And I appreciate that you caught that I do love challenging work. I don't know why. I was that kid who learned how to multiply and divide much easier before I could add and subtract. It's just how my brain works. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
I think we have time for one more.
Okay.
Presley Renner says, any advice to budding directors just starting out?
Oh, Presley, what a question. That's such a great question. I think the most important thing is read as many plays as you can, get your hands on as many writers as you can. Read more than 1, 2, 3, 4 plays by writers. And then what's going to happen is you're going to find the kind of play and writer that you are attracted to. The same with musical theater writers, book writers. Someone like Michael Jackson, for example, his stories, the stories that he tells are so very different and fresh and new. If you read his canon, you'll have such a strong sense of his work. Is that the kind of work that you're excited by? And then, of course, once we're back in the room, you can do this through Zoom, but grab friends, have conversations. Hey, can you read this with me? I love this play. I'd love to hear it out loud. Can we just read it out loud over Zoom and begin to practice being in a room and begin to practice how language in plays resonates in you and how you resonate to plays and how you communicate that with the people around you. And then, of course, the ultimate, like, get yourself out there. Hustle, 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 hustle. And ultimately, eventually, if you don't give up and if you keep going, the industry will be there for you. So, Dev and I can say, I think I said is it 25 years out now? And there's some moments when I still feel like when I start rehearsal or do a Zoom reading or, direct a Zoom production, it still feels like the first day of school. If that's what you feel each time when you read a play or when you get into a room with people, then this is still the right thing for you to do.
Oh, that's so beautiful said. I love that analogy of the first day of school because I still have that, thank God.
I love it. Me too. It's so amazing.
So we are totally out of time. I told you we'd go fast.
I know.
But before we go, to our viewers, please consider supporting our organization by going to liveandincolor.org to donate. All money raised goes towards our amazing artists and developing their new work. Also, be sure to tune in to Be Our Guest next week when I talk to the incredible actor, director, and choreographer Jerry McIntyre from shows such as Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and Once on This Island. He is a riot. And
that's an understatement.
It's going to be an amazing show. Leah, thank you for joining me. You really are such an inspiration. And thank you for all the work you do. Would you lead us in a little toast?
I would love to lead you. I have sake. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a little vodka and soda.
Love the vodka and soda. With my sake and your vodka and soda, what I would love to say is the work that you are doing in your theater. If every country, no matter what language, did the kind of work that you are doing, we would have a better world, because this is where it begins. And I'm grateful to you and thankful to you, Dev, for all that you have done and for how long you have been at it to make a safe and inclusive and welcoming space for people who look like you and me in the American theater. And so I want to toast you as well as your theater and your community, because you matter and you make us remember that we matter too. So hear, hear. Thank you.
Leah. So lovely. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
All right.